Ivan Vanko might be one of the more interesting what-ifs in the entire MCU. Could he have become Iron Man instead of becoming Whiplash? As we all know, Tony built his first Iron Man suit in a cave with scraps and junk. Ivan Vanko does the same thing in a rundown apartment in Moscow. With old research from his father, whatever materials he can get his hands on, he does what Tony does. He creates arc reactor technology by himself. And to put that into perspective of how wild that feat was, during this point in the MCU, a lot of countries, including the US government, were trying to make their own Iron Man. Institutions with money, labs, military backing, and they still can't properly recreate what Tony built. And then, here comes Ivan. This man gets closer than anyone to making this impossible tech while living in poverty. He was the only one who could even touch Tony, and Tony didn't even see him coming. One of the only things that separates these two is their inheritance. Tony inherited the Stark name, Ivan inherited Anton Vanko, who left him with humiliation, bitterness, and a story about what the Starks supposedly stole from their family. So when Anton watches Tony Stark on TV and tells Ivan, "That should be you," Anton was basically telling his own son, "That is your crown, he took it from you, that's your target." Tony Stark is standing in the life that was meant to be yours, ours. However, I don't think that Ivan wants to be in Tony's spot necessarily. By this point, I'm pretty sure he just wants to stop Stark from being untouchable. Wanting his life would mean that Ivan would actually care about building something for himself once the opportunity presents itself. But Ivan's entire plan is simply to just take from Tony. Also, Ivan doesn't really care about flexing his intelligence or ingenuity. He already knows that he's on par with Tony. In fact, killing Tony's not even the main play here. We can confirm this when he's arrested in Monaco, because in this scene he's maniacally laughing, saying, "You lose, Tony Stark. You lose." And that's actually why Monaco was such a well thought out and executed play by Ivan. He could have tried to kill Tony quietly. He could have tried to single him out, get him while he's by himself and then kill him. He could have poisoned him, he could have hired somebody to kill him, but that is not the point of Ivan's revenge. Tony's real power right now is his Stark image. It's the speeches, the cameras, the applause, the whole world looking at him like he's the future, and Ivan wants to disrupt that. And in order for that to happen, everybody needs to be watching while he does it. Ivan publicly humiliated Tony. He made this god bleed in front of his people, in front of the world who saw Tony as the hero. Also, keep in mind, Tony not too long ago had just told the US Senate that no one in the world was even close to making his tech. He said that everyone was years behind him. Ivan did this with basically no resources. And then he shows just how terrifying his genius is when Justin Hammer gives him all the resources. Ivan could have become Iron Man, but the truth is, despite them being at odds with one another, Ivan and Tony actually have a lot more in common. This is why the question of could Ivan have become Iron Man is interesting, because I think it's a fair assessment to also postulate that Tony could have become Whiplash, because they have so much in common. They are mirrors to one another. You see, both are arrogant, detached, reckless, shaped by their weapons and heavily influenced by their fathers. Tony could have become evil. That's why I don't think the answer is as simple as Ivan had the wrong resources or Tony had the right ones. Resources explain why Ivan starts behind Tony, but they don't exactly explain what he chooses to do once he finally catches up. Tony's damage eventually forces him to look outwards, while Ivan's keeps pulling him back to the same internal wound. But the split comes with what each of them did with their traumas. Tony becomes Iron Man because he can push past his wounds. He learns from his mistakes and always makes improvements. With Ivan, he calcifies in his trauma. As a consequence, he narrows himself down to revenge and trying to find out constantly what's the best way that he could destroy the Stark legacy. That becomes his obsession, and he's nothing more outside of that. Every road that Ivan builds always leads back to Tony Stark. So technologically, yes, he could have become Iron Man, but psychologically, emotionally, he couldn't be Tony Stark.